You are listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. I'm Elena Paweta, Executive Communication Coach and TEDx organizer. With each episode, I'll share with you communication tips and ideas from top business leaders to help you excel in your career. Welcome to the next episode of Ideas and Leaders podcast. My guest today is Nicole Durio. She has more than 25 years of experience in accounting, financial reporting, advisory services, and business consulting. And Nicole has mentored over 250 women to six-figure income status. Wow. Welcome, Nicole. Welcome to Ideas and Leaders.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me, Elena.
Nicole, it is such a pleasure to speak with you today about your perspective on leadership and on current business challenges that we have. But first, I would like to ask you about your story. So how did you get to mentor women to six-figure businesses?
Sure. So it's really interesting. I initially wanted to be an attorney or a physician. And I realized that I did not have the heart to become a physician. I did not want to have to tell families that there was nothing else we could do for their loved ones. I didn't want to do any death pronouncements. So I said, okay, this is going to be out. Otherwise, I would be crying every single day at work. And then I looked at law, and when I looked at all the books and all the reading that you had to do, I was like, oh my God, this is like punishment. Because reading was never really a strong point of mine. And so I remember having a conversation with my father. I was a senior in high school, and I was talking to him about what I wanted to do. And he worked for a large oil field services company. Actually, it was Schlumberger. And he shared with me that one of his divisional presidents was a former CPA at one of the big 8 at the time accounting firms. So as I began to do my research and discovered all of the many things that you could do with accounting, I also knew that accounting is not something you can replace with a computer. You can automate systems, but you cannot automate the accounting. And every organization has an accountant, whether you're in hospitality, the restaurant industry, entertainment, sports, oil and gas, the medical field. So here we are almost 30 years later, and I'm still working in the industry, still love it. In 2005, I was able to differentiate myself in my company that I was working for. It was a Big Four accounting firm, as a superwoman, because I was the only working mother in my practice nationwide. We traveled 100% of the time. Being in consulting, we flew out on Sunday nights and we're back home on Thursday. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, on the plane ride back, so many people had asked me, what are you going to do after you have your baby? There was just an assumption that I was going to quit. And so I made it a determination in my mind at that time. I'm going to be a game changer. I'm going to be the first and only working mother to do this. And that allowed me to get incredible visibility. I was on leadership teams, women advisory boards. And so that's what gave me access to so many women and just the conversations and seminars and leadership development. And it was a great, great run until I started my own firm in 2009.
Wow, this is so inspirational. I'm sure that you were a role model to many women in business because,
yes.
Because now it is, we see this in business more and more, especially after the pandemic, that women can take care of their families and can combine it with work. But before, I don't think that it was a common thing, right?
As accepted. It was common, but it was not accepted.
Yeah. So now you're also working with women and supporting women in their businesses. So what are...
And leadership as well. I do a lot of leadership training with organizations. And so, of course, when you're doing leadership training, most of the time the audience is majority male.
Yeah, yeah. So what are the challenges that you see currently in leadership, in business, as you work with your clients?
I think one of the biggest challenges is, and has always been, if you take out AL out of challenge, or you take out the two L's, you get change, right? So change is something that is constant and consistent. And for leaders who have been in place a long time, I would say more than 10 or 15 years, they were somewhat resistant to the changes imposed by the pandemic, like working from home. Because oftentimes, in my field, in my industry, consultants, we've been working from home since the late 90s. But there was always this misnomer of, when you're working from home, you're not really working, that you're doing laundry and that you're cooking and you're running errands. But when you're an effective business professional and you understand deadlines and productivity and deliverables, you know how to stay in front of a computer. Having a home office is very, very common. So I think there was a difficulty with leaders in trusting whether their employees would still produce when not in their presence.
Yeah, so do you see that this perspective is changing now as you're working with leaders, that this
Oh,
working from
absolutely.
home is more common now?
Absolutely. I've actually seen some organizations walking away from their brick and mortar leases. And they've set in place different things where people can work from home all week, or they're doing an office sharing. So you don't need as much space. So you may have an A team and a B team. And so the A team will work on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the B team will work on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and no one is in the office on Friday. And I think what that's done too, it's cut down or eliminated a lot of absenteeism, right? Because if people are working from home, or they know that Friday is a light day, they can schedule their appointments, medical appointments, appointments for the children, just personal things. And so I think in that regard, it's been a good thing. The harmful thing, or the tragic thing about the pandemic, is that a lot of businesses were able to thrive during the pandemic. Those businesses who had sanitary products, janitorial services, and cleaning businesses. But there were also a lot of businesses that went under, that went out of business, especially when you think about retailers and brick and mortar stores. People were shopping online, and just doing things online just became second nature, right? People are having their groceries delivered, food delivered. And so a lot has changed in that regard. But what the pandemic also did is it gave people an opportunity to be creative. How can I do this differently? How can I do it more effectively? How can I reach a broader audience? And so that's always good, right? Because invention, or necessity, is the mother to invention.
Yes, so we see that it is more common for leaders
Mhm.
to let it go, that we are working from home. But still, do you see that there are some challenges in regards to team motivation and team engagement? And how do you see that those issues are managed?
So of course, teaming environment, even though you may not be physically in an office every day, there still has to be a bonding of your team. There still has to be team meetings and team exercises, whether you're doing roundtables in the office or whether you're doing activities. I think teaming and bonding is very important, because if you want your team to remain cohesive and to coalesce, there has to be some camaraderie, right? So it's very important as a business leader to understand what type of team you have and how you do the camaraderie, right? So Microsoft has the tool Teams. So I participate in a lot of Teams meetings where people are in their own environment, but you see everyone on the screen, and there is a meeting, there's an agenda, there's a lot of participation. And then, maybe once a quarter, there are in-person meetings. People are still flying out of town. Business travel is picking up. the hotel stays are picking up. So I think that what has happened too is conferences and conventions are becoming more popular because people are at home. They want opportunities to get outside of the work office, the home office, right? They want to bond. They want to be in meetings. They want to hear best practices. And so I think that's another dynamic that has changed a lot, is that the convention industry has really picked up, and so has hoteling.
Yes, definitely. I can even see it by myself that I'm looking for an interesting event that I can attend.
Right.
Because before, when we used to travel a lot, much more than now,
Mm-hmm.
then we would I just want to go home and have a rest.
Exactly. I want to be in my own bed.
Yeah. Now it is like, where can I go for a weekend, or which conference can I attend next month? Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. You're right. So how we can in this dynamic that is changing, how can we motivate our teams and motivate ourselves to be more productive and not just to relax, to stay in bed a little bit longer because we are working in a home office?
Right. So I have my 3 R's that I like to talk about, Elena. It is recruit, retain, and reward. And the reason reward is important is because the dynamics have changed. The complexion of the workforce has changed. People have to feel motivated, and people have to feel like they're going to be rewarded and a part of the business outcomes. And so I think now more than ever, it's important for leaders to recognize that team bonuses is a great concept, right? It's kind of like either we're all going to get a bonus or no one will get a bonus, right? And it forces or it causes people to play fair in the sandbox. It causes individuals to be more inclusive. It causes more diversity of thought and ideas. And as you know, 10 can come up with a better idea than 2, right? Because you walk and you put things out, you do the brainstorming, and then you pressure test it, then you begin to flush through things. And so you have a great idea with 10 people at the table as opposed to 2 or 3.
Yeah, so recruit, retain, and reward, right?
Yes.
3 R's.
Yes.
And how we can reward our employees, maybe not only with money, but what we can do within our teams to increase this engagement.
Yeah, so I would say just thinking outside the box, right? So I've had some clients who actually have spa days in the office. So you'll schedule on a board because there are so many. You have Massage Heights, Massage Envy, Hand and Stone Massage. There's so many different franchises out there. But to actually have masseuse and therapists come in the office, right? Because if you're relieving stress, you're relieving tension, you're giving people an outlet, that causes people to stay because you're not only concerned about their productivity, you're concerned about their health and their well-being. Because the pandemic became a big stressor. There were many people who did not know how they were going to pay their mortgage, how they were going to pay their rent. You had businesses closing. And then I think one of the biggest stresses of the pandemic was the schools being closed. I mean, the parents were having all kinds of challenges trying to do schoolwork with a school child and produce their work, and people gained a much greater appreciation for teachers. And you can see now how that's manifested in teacher shortages and other things. And so I think people want to know that you care about them as a person and not just what they can give you. And so I think the pandemic even gave some leaders hearts, right? Because sometimes you can have people that are so focused on the bottom line, they forget that people are really people.
Yes, absolutely. And this idea with the massage, I visualized it. If I had a masseuse in the
In the
office.
office, it's amazing. It is amazing. And you can do it one Friday out of the month or one Friday out of the quarter. You have 3 or 4, and then you have the schedule. People schedule in their times, come in. It's great for the business, and it's also great for your company, and it's great for partnership and retention.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I would definitely be willing to go to such an office because, yeah, this is something that you're looking forward to. And of course, you are by, being more enthusiastic and, positive, you're becoming more productive, more effective. So this
Mhm.
is a really
And, and for
interesting.
men who may not be interested in massages, you can have shoe shiners come in, right? So men can get their shoes shined on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, right? Because people, businessmen, executive businessmen would do that in the airports. Walking through the airports, you see them getting their shoes done. So the idea is if I can just take 1 or 2 things off the plate of my employee, if I can take 1 or 2 things away, if I can clear their thoughts for 30, 40 minutes, that those are things that really, really increase retention, because otherwise you run the risk of your employees being recycled, because they're going to go across the street for another $4 or $5,000 a year, and you can just invest that into keeping them on board, because it's very, very expensive to train employees.
Yes. And another topic that I wanted to discuss with you is the mindset that you already covered a little bit, that we were in such a huge amount of stress during the pandemic. And now, as this work dynamic changed and we're working from home, we still feel the stress all the time, because especially women in business, they're thinking about their kids going from school at the same time, and
What's for
some
dinner?
about the dinner and some other things. So what can we do to reduce this amount of stress, maybe, or to help our co-workers to become less stressed and more productive?
Right. I think time management is very important. And another thing that's important is transparency. And what I mean by transparency, a lot of times there are some individuals who are working from home, but they're doing so many other things, they're not really being productive, right? And so if you're away from your computer, click on away so that your coworkers, your boss, and other individuals get notified that you're not available at that time, right? And it also sets boundaries, it takes the stress away. And then, of course, using your calendar. Calendars are so important. And I think it's important. We schedule meetings, but we never schedule time to think. We never schedule quiet time. And anyone I mentor, I always tell them you have to have thinking time and you have to have quiet time, time for reflection and just meditation. And because if you're just going, doing, and you're executing, you're going to become a robot, and everything is going to become like second nature. And at some point, the value that you add becomes diminished, right? And that's why having a competitive edge is important. And one of the things, Elena, that I share with individuals is that your significance is in your difference. It's not being the same. Because if everyone's the same, it doesn't really matter. I can go to McDonald's and get fries, or Burger King, or Whataburger, but what's gonna make it different, right? Burger King says you can have it your way. So that's how I've been able to differentiate myself over 30 years, is to always make sure myself and my associates that we maintain a competitive edge.
Yes, and so there's importance of planning. I think that, yeah, on one hand, you mentioned the importance of planning, and planning not only meetings and important things, but also planning quiet
Thinking
time,
time and
thinking
thinking.
time. Yeah, so this is something that we don't think about, and this will take a lot of stress from our shoulders.
And Elena, thinking time is so powerful. When I just take a step back and I think, I can strategize about my business, what clients I desire to attract, what alliances I want to be a part of, what alliances I want to walk away from. And so it's very, very critical, because sometimes you may have a business that becomes non-performing because you're spending time on clients that are unproductive and not profitable. But you can take that same unproductive energy and put it into a client that is productive, that you do enjoy working with, and grow that business.
Yes, definitely. We need this time for strategizing and thinking, because sometimes we are so caught up in this circle of doing things and that we don't have time for it. Because I think that our free time is now becoming, I don't know, social media time or catching up with our home things time, and we don't have actually time to think, to sit and think.
And as a leader, thinking is very important, and reading. Leaders are readers, and readers are leaders. So reading is very important as well.
Yeah, thinking and reading, two very important things. Let's write this down, dear listeners. So Nicole, to sum up our conversation, what are the takeaways that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I think I'll share 3. The first one is, remember, whatever you do, whether you're a business owner, business leader in leadership, or an employee, maintain a competitive edge. If you have a new job or you have an old job, figure out, determine a way, assess, how can I differentiate myself? How can I make myself shine? How can I do this differently, more effectively, more efficiently? And how can I make good better? And how can I make better best? The second thing is time management. Time management is so important. And that's something that you can never get back. We don't know how much time we have. We can't get it back. You can lose money, your investments can go south, but you can always recover that with time, or making another investment, or the right alliance. But time is something that you cannot buy or get back, and you cannot restore it. And then the third thing, I'd like to encourage the listeners and the viewers, if you'd like to reach out to me, please feel free to visit my company website. It's madisonbrothers.com, and that's brothers spelled out.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing your website. And if our listeners want to contact you on social media, where can they find you?
So I'm very hard to find on social media because I tend to resist it. But I am on LinkedIn under Nicole Durio, CPA. And of course, again, on my website, madisonbrothers.com. And I can also be found for personal financial matters on NicoleMichelle.com. I'll be sure to get that information to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will definitely put the link under the episode so that our listeners can immediately jump there and contact you. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for being on Ideas and Leaders.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. Did you enjoy this episode? Let me know that you listened by tagging me in your LinkedIn profile and using a hashtag Ideas and Leaders. See you in the next episode.